Lance had been looking forward to the summer camping trip with his friends for weeks. It was supposed to be a thrilling adventure in the heart of the wilderness. The group had chosen a remote location deep in the woods, far away from civilization. As they set up their campsite, Lance couldn't help but notice how quiet and eerie the surroundings were. The tall trees seemed to whisper secrets, and the dense foliage blocked out most of the sunlight, casting an eerie gloom over the area. As night fell, the group gathered around the crackling campfire, sharing stories and laughter. But Lance couldn't shake off the feeling that they were being watched. Every rustle in the bushes or distant hoot of an owl sent chills down his spine. His unease grew as the night wore on. The wind began to howl, creating an unsettling symphony with the rustling leaves. Lance's friends seemed oblivious to his growing anxiety, engrossed in their own conversations and laughter. Unable to shake off the feeling, Lance excused himself to take a walk, hoping the solitude would calm his nerves. He ventured deeper into the woods, flashlight in hand, his footsteps echoing in the silence. Suddenly, his flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows on the trees. Lance froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He tapped the flashlight, hoping for it to regain its full brightness, but it failed him. Darkness engulfed him, leaving him disoriented and vulnerable. Panicking, Lance stumbled forward, desperate to find his way back to the campsite. But as he walked, the forest seemed to twist and turn, the trees forming an impenetrable maze. He tried to retrace his steps, but everything looked unfamiliar in the darkness. Just as Lance was about to give up hope, he caught a glimpse of flickering light through the trees. Heart racing, he followed it, praying it would lead him back to safety. The light grew brighter, and soon he stumbled upon a small cabin nestled deep in the woods. Cautiously, Lance approached the cabin. The flickering light emanated from a broken window, casting an eerie glow on the overgrown path. Hesitant but desperate for help, Lance knocked on the creaky door, his voice trembling as he called out for assistance. To his surprise, the door creaked open, revealing an old woman with a haggard face and piercing eyes. She beckoned him inside, her voice barely a whisper. Lance hesitated for a moment, but the darkness and his fear of the unknown urged him to enter. The cabin's interior was cluttered with ancient artifacts, and a musty smell permeated the air. The woman motioned for Lance to sit by the fireplace, her eyes fixated on him. Lance couldn't help but feel a chill crawl up his spine as he studied the woman's peculiar behavior. As he glanced around the room, his eyes fell upon a weathered photograph on the wall. It depicted a group of campers, their smiles frozen in time. Lance's heart skipped a beat when he recognized his own face among them, surrounded by his friends. Before he could react, the old woman spoke, her voice now filled with malice. "Welcome to your eternal summer, Lance," she hissed, revealing her true nature. Lance's blood turned to ice as he realized the cabin was a trap, a sinister prison meant to hold him forever. Lance's mind raced as he tried to make sense of the old woman's words. How could she know his name? And why was she condemning him to an eternal summer? Panic surged through his veins, urging him to escape the clutches of this wicked trap. Summoning his courage, Lance sprang to his feet and darted toward the door. But before he could reach it, the old woman's gnarled hand shot out, grabbing his arm with an iron grip. Her touch sent waves of coldness through his body, paralyzing him with fear. "You cannot escape, Lance," she whispered, her voice carrying an otherworldly echo. "You and your friends have awakened the ancient curse that lingers in these woods. Now you shall all pay the price." Lance's heart sank. The summer camping trip had turned into a nightmare, with his friends' lives hanging in the balance. Determined to save them, he mustered all his strength and yanked his arm free from the old woman's grasp. With a burst of adrenaline, Lance tore open the cabin door and sprinted into the forest, leaving behind the haunting laughter of the old woman. He raced through the darkness, his mind filled with images of his friends trapped in the clutches of the curse. As he ran, branches slapped against his face, and roots threatened to trip him. But Lance refused to be deterred. The safety of his friends depended on his ability to break free from this nightmare. Suddenly, Lance stumbled upon a hidden clearing. A moonlit pond sparkled before him, its tranquil surface reflecting the shimmering stars above. It was as if the clearing held a sliver of hope amidst the darkness that enveloped the woods. In the center of the clearing, Lance noticed a worn-out book lying on a moss-covered rock. Intrigued, he picked it up, dusted it off, and opened it to a page that described a ritual to break the curse. The ritual involved finding and destroying a cursed object hidden deep within the forest. Lance's heart raced as he realized what he had to do. He had to find the cursed object and save his friends from their eternal summer prison. Armed with newfound determination, he set off into the night, following the clues in the book. Through thick underbrush and treacherous terrain, Lance pushed forward. He traversed rocky slopes and crossed babbling streams, driven by the hope of breaking the curse that threatened his friends' lives. Hours turned into an agonizing blur, but Lance pressed on, his resolve unyielding. At last, he stumbled upon a long-forgotten stone altar nestled beneath a towering oak tree. The cursed object, an ancient amulet, lay atop the altar, radiating a malevolent energy. With trembling hands, Lance reached for the amulet, his fingers grazing its cold surface. A surge of power coursed through him, and for a moment, doubt crept into his mind. But he pushed it aside, knowing he had to destroy the amulet to save his friends. Summoning all his strength, Lance raised the amulet high above his head and slammed it onto the stone altar. The amulet shattered into pieces, releasing a blinding light that engulfed the clearing. Lance shielded his eyes, his heart pounding with anticipation. As the light subsided, Lance opened his eyes to find himself back at the campsite. His friends stood around him, their faces etched with confusion and relief. The curse had been broken, and they were free. Exhausted but grateful, Lance and his friends packed up their belongings, vowing to leave the cursed woods behind forever. The summer camping trip had transformed into a harrowing ordeal, but it had also forged an unbreakable bond among the friends. Little did they know that the old woman, her wicked grin forever etched in their memories, watched from the shadows, her curse broken but her vengeance lingering. The woods would forever hold the secrets of that fateful summer camping trip, a reminder of the darkness that dwelled within. It was a warm summer evening when Tom and his friends decided to embark on a camping adventure. They had heard about a secluded spot deep in the woods, known for its natural beauty and tranquility. Excitement filled the air as they packed their camping gear and set off towards their destination. As they arrived at the campsite, they were greeted by the breathtaking sight of towering trees, a crystal-clear lake, and a sky adorned with stars. They quickly set up their tents, built a campfire, and settled in for the night. The crackling fire and the sound of nocturnal creatures created an enchanting ambience. As the night progressed, Tom couldn't shake off an uneasy feeling that washed over him. It was as if something was lurking in the darkness, observing their every move. He dismissed it as mere imagination and tried to enjoy the company of his friends, who seemed oblivious to the mounting tension. The next day, they decided to explore the surrounding woods. The sun was shining brightly, casting playful shadows on the forest floor. Tom led the group, his curiosity driving him deeper into the wilderness. They ventured farther than they had planned, losing track of time and distance. Suddenly, Tom noticed peculiar markings on the trees. Intrigued, he called out to his friends, and they gathered around to examine the strange symbols. None of them could decipher their meaning, but an eerie silence fell upon the group, accompanied by a feeling of being watched. Uneasiness hung in the air as they decided to retrace their steps and head back to the campsite. But as they walked, the forest seemed to change its familiar appearance. The once peaceful surroundings now appeared foreboding, the trees looming over them like ancient guardians of a forgotten secret. Hours passed, and panic began to take hold. They had become hopelessly lost, their attempts to find their way back only leading them deeper into the heart of the woods. Tom's heart raced, his mind filled with the chilling possibility that they might never escape this labyrinth of trees. Just as despair threatened to consume them, they stumbled upon a clearing. Relief washed over them as they realized they had finally found their way back to the campsite. But their relief was short-lived as they noticed something was amiss. Their tents were torn and scattered, their belongings strewn across the ground. Fear gripped their hearts as they searched for any signs of what had transpired in their absence. Among the ruins, they discovered a weathered journal. Its pages were filled with cryptic writings and drawings, seemingly describing dark rituals performed in the very woods they found themselves trapped in. As night fell, the forest came alive with an otherworldly presence. Whispers carried on the wind, chilling their bones and fueling their dread. Shadows danced around them, and strange figures appeared fleetingly among the trees. Tom and his friends huddled together, desperately clinging to the remnants of their courage. Tom's heart pounded in his chest as the sounds of the forest intensified. The rustling leaves seemed to form eerie melodies, and distant whispers grew louder and more distinct. It was as if the very essence of the woods had awakened, revealing a malevolent force lurking in its depths. Driven by a mix of curiosity and desperation, Tom decided to delve deeper into the mystery that surrounded them. He carefully leafed through the weathered journal, trying to decipher its cryptic contents. Each page revealed more about the dark rituals performed in the woods, involving ancient symbols and sacrifices. As he read, an unsettling realization dawned on Tom. The symbols on the trees they had encountered earlier were part of the rituals described in the journal. They had unknowingly trespassed into a sacred place, awakening an ancient power that now sought to keep them captive. Determined to find a way out, Tom shared his discoveries with his friends. They too were filled with a mix of fascination and terror. Together, they resolved to unravel the secrets of the forest and break free from its sinister hold. They embarked on a quest, following the clues within the journal and piecing together fragments of information. Each step brought them closer to the truth, but also deeper into the clutches of the forest's malevolence. They encountered inexplicable phenomena, anomalies in time, distorted perceptions, and unsettling visions that tested their sanity. Despite the ever-present danger, Tom and his friends pressed on, driven by their shared will to escape. They discovered an ancient stone altar hidden deep within a forgotten grove, a focal point for the dark rituals that had haunted them. Determined to break the curse, they concocted a plan to disrupt the unholy energy that permeated the area. Armed with torches, the knowledge from the journal, and a resolve born out of desperation, they gathered at the altar. They recited incantations meant to reverse the dark magic that held them captive, their voices trembling but resolute. With each word spoken, the forest responded with fury, a tempest of wind, thunderous roars, and unearthly screams. Just as their hope began to waver, a blinding light erupted from the altar, illuminating the forest. The oppressive presence dissipated, and a calm, eerie silence settled over the woods. Slowly, the ancient power receded, releasing its grip on Tom and his friends. Exhausted and shaken, they emerged from the forest, forever changed by their harrowing experience. The camping trip they had anticipated with excitement had turned into a nightmare they would never forget. But it also forged an unbreakable bond among them, a testament to their resilience and the strength of their friendship. Though they left the woods behind, the memories of that summer camping trip would forever haunt their dreams. The whispers of the forest echoed in their minds, a reminder of the darkness that resides in the hidden corners of the world. And as they looked back one final time, they knew they had narrowly escaped a fate far worse than they could have imagined. The summer camping adventure had become a cautionary tale, a reminder to tread carefully in the face of the unknown, for even in the midst of beauty, danger may lie concealed. Kelvin couldn't wait for summer vacation. He had been looking forward to it for months, especially because this year his family had planned a camping trip. They were going to spend a week at a remote campground surrounded by dense woods and a beautiful lake. Kelvin loved nature, and the idea of spending time outdoors excited him. As the day of their departure approached, Calvin helped his parents gather all the necessary camping gear. They loaded up their car and set off early one sunny morning. The drive to the campground was long, but Calvin was too excited to feel tired. When they arrived, the campground looked even more enchanting than he had imagined. The tall, ancient trees towered above their heads, providing shade and creating a sense of mystery. The lake shimmered in the sunlight, inviting them to jump in and swim. Calvin's family quickly set up their campsite. They pitched their tent, unrolled their sleeping bags, and organized their supplies. The campground was mostly empty, with only a few other families scattered around. Calvin noticed a group of teenagers in a neighboring campsite, laughing and joking with each other. He hoped he would make some friends during his stay. The first few days of the camping trip were wonderful. Calvin and his family spent their time hiking, swimming, and roasting marshmallows over the campfire. The evenings were filled with storytelling and stargazing. However, as the days went by, Calvin started to notice something peculiar. Every night, he would wake up to strange noises coming from the woods. It sounded like rustling leaves, twigs snapping, and distant whispers. At first, Calvin dismissed it as the normal sounds of nature, but the noises grew louder and more unsettling with each passing night. One evening, Calvin decided to investigate. He quietly slipped out of his tent, armed with a flashlight, and ventured into the dark woods. The moonlight filtered through the dense canopy, casting eerie shadows on the forest floor. Calvin's heart pounded in his chest as he followed the source of the mysterious sounds. As he walked deeper into the woods, he stumbled upon an old, dilapidated cabin hidden among the trees. The sight sent a shiver down his spine. Curiosity and fear warred within him, but his desire to unravel the mystery won. Calvin cautiously approached the cabin and peeked through a cracked window. Inside, he saw a group of people huddled together, their faces hidden in shadows. They spoke in hushed tones, their voices filled with a sense of urgency. Calvin couldn't make out their words, but their tense expressions sent a chill down his spine. Just as he was about to retreat, his foot brushed against a loose rock, causing it to roll and hit a nearby tree. The noise echoed through the silent night, alerting the people in the cabin. Panic flashed across their faces as they abruptly fell silent. Calvin's heart raced as he realized he had been discovered. Calvin quickly stepped back from the window, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew he had to get out of there before he was caught. He turned around and began to creep away from the cabin, but his foot caught on a root, and he stumbled, letting out a small cry of surprise. The sudden noise was all it took for the people inside the cabin to spring into action. Calvin could hear their hurried footsteps and low whispers as they rushed toward the door. Panic surged through his veins as he scrambled to his feet and darted back into the woods. He ran as fast as his legs could carry him, branches whipping at his face and thorny bushes scratching his arms. Fear and adrenaline fueled his flight, and he didn't dare look back to see if he was being pursued. He had to find his way back to the safety of his family's campsite. After what felt like an eternity, Calvin burst through the trees and stumbled into the clearing where his family's tent stood. He collapsed onto the ground, gasping for breath and trying to make sense of what he had just witnessed. His parents rushed to his side, concern etched on their faces. "Calvin, what happened? Are you okay?" his mother asked, her voice filled with worry. Calvin struggled to find his voice as he recounted the events he had witnessed in the cabin. His parents exchanged worried glances, realizing that something was amiss in the campground. "We need to report this," his father said, his voice filled with determination. "There's no telling what those people are up to." They quickly packed up their belongings and headed towards the campground office. The night was still and heavy with an unsettling silence as they walked. Calvin's mind raced with thoughts of the mysterious group, wondering who they were and what they were planning. When they reached the campground office, they found it empty. Calvin's father searched for a phone but discovered it was out of order. Panic began to creep back into Calvin's heart. They were stranded, isolated from the outside world, with a group of unknown individuals lurking in the woods. As they made their way back to their campsite, Calvin couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. The once peaceful and beautiful surroundings now seemed sinister and menacing. Shadows danced in the moonlight, and every rustle of leaves made his heart skip a beat. That night, they huddled together in their tent, the sound of the forest outside amplified in their ears. Sleep eluded them as they listened to the strange noises and distant whispers that seemed to echo through the night. Calvin's mind raced, wondering what their next move should be. Would they be able to escape this nightmarish situation? And what were those people in the cabin planning? Calvin knew he had stumbled upon something dangerous, and the fate of his family and the others in the campground hung in the balance. The night seemed endless, filled with a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Calvin's family stayed huddled together, their senses heightened as they listened intently to the eerie sounds that surrounded them. They knew they had to devise a plan to ensure their safety and uncover the truth about the mysterious group in the woods. With the first light of dawn breaking through the trees, Calvin's father made a decision. He whispered to his family, "We can't stay here any longer. We need to find help and get out of this campground." They quickly packed their belongings, leaving behind their tent and most of their camping gear. As they moved through the silent campground, they noticed an eerie stillness, devoid of any signs of life. The other families seemed to have vanished overnight. Determined to find assistance, they followed a narrow path that led away from the campsite. The path wound through dense foliage, and the air grew colder and heavier, adding to their unease. Calvin's heart pounded with each step, unsure of what they would discover or encounter next. After what felt like hours of walking, they stumbled upon a small, rustic cabin. It appeared deserted, with peeling paint and a weathered porch. Calvin's father suggested they search the cabin for any clues or means of communication. They cautiously entered, their eyes darting around the dimly lit interior. Inside, they found an old radio sitting on a dusty shelf. Calvin's father picked it up and tried to turn it on, but there was no power. Disappointed, he was about to put it back when he noticed a piece of paper stuck between the radio and the shelf. He carefully pulled it out and unfolded it. The paper contained a handwritten message, barely legible due to the passage of time. It read, "Those who seek the truth, beware. The woods hold a secret, a darkness that cannot be unseen. Trust no one. Find the abandoned chapel deep within the forest. The answers lie within its walls." The message sent shivers down their spines. It confirmed their suspicions that something sinister was happening in this campground. Determined to uncover the truth, Calvin's family knew they had to locate the abandoned chapel and find the answers they sought. They left the cabin and continued their journey through the dense woods, following the directions given in the cryptic message. The forest grew darker and denser, the trees looming over them like silent sentinels. Every step felt heavier, as if the forest itself was trying to keep them away from its secrets. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, they stumbled upon a clearing, and there, nestled among the trees, stood a dilapidated chapel. Its windows were shattered, and its wooden door creaked in the breeze. A sense of foreboding washed over them as they cautiously approached the eerie structure. Pushing the door open, they entered the chapel, their footsteps echoing in the empty space. Moonlight streamed through the broken windows, casting an ethereal glow on the decaying pews and dusty altar. Symbols and markings adorned the walls, hinting at a forgotten past. As they explored further, they discovered a hidden compartment beneath the altar. Calvin's father reached inside and pulled out a worn leather-bound journal. The journal belonged to a former caretaker of the campground, who had documented strange occurrences and suspicious activities surrounding a cult-like group that had taken up residence in the woods. The journal revealed a twisted plot involving human sacrifices and rituals, all in an attempt to summon dark forces from the depths of the forest. Calvin's family realized they had stumbled upon something far more dangerous than they had ever imagined. They had to put an end to it and save themselves and any other potential victims. Armed with newfound knowledge, Calvin's family knew they had to act swiftly. They decided to gather evidence from the journal and find a way to bring the truth to light, to expose the darkness that had plagued the campground for so long. But little did they know, their presence in the abandoned chapel had not gone unnoticed. The sound of footsteps and hushed whispers grew closer, and the oppressive air seemed to tighten its grip around them. They were not alone in their pursuit of the truth, and their battle for survival was far from over. As the footsteps drew nearer, Calvin's family exchanged anxious glances. They had inadvertently stumbled upon the secret gathering place of the cult-like group, and now they were in grave danger. Fear tightened its grip around their hearts, but they knew they had to stay composed and think of a plan. Whispering hurriedly, Calvin's father suggested splitting up temporarily to maximize their chances of obtaining evidence and escaping. He and Calvin would search the chapel for any additional clues, while his mother would remain hidden, ready to alert them if the intruders approached. Calvin and his father carefully combed through the chapel, searching for anything that could expose the dark activities taking place in the campground. They discovered hidden compartments within the walls, containing disturbing artifacts, sacrificial tools, and photographs of past rituals. Each piece of evidence sent a shiver down their spines, solidifying their resolve to bring an end to this nightmare. As they gathered the evidence, they heard muffled voices growing louder outside the chapel. The cult members were getting closer. Panic surged through Calvin's veins as he realized time was running out. They had to regroup with his mother and find a way to escape before they were discovered. They reunited with Calvin's mother, who looked pale and anxious. She had heard the whispers and footsteps drawing near, indicating that their presence had not gone unnoticed. Without wasting a moment, they quietly slipped out of the chapel, carefully navigating through the dense forest, guided only by the moonlight. Their hearts raced as they maneuvered through the labyrinthine paths, aware that their pursuers could be right behind them. They knew they had to find help, someone who could put an end to the cult's activities and ensure their safety. Their only hope lay in reaching the nearest town and alerting the authorities. After what seemed like an eternity of treacherous travel through the dark woods, they stumbled upon a clearing. In the distance, they spotted the glimmering lights of a small town. Relief washed over them, giving them the strength to continue. As they approached the town, they frantically searched for a place to seek refuge and notify the authorities. They found a small police station, and with trembling hands, Calvin's father explained the horrifying events that had unfolded in the secluded campground. The police listened intently, their expressions turning grim as they grasped the gravity of the situation. An investigation was launched immediately, involving the local authorities, as well as specialized units from nearby cities. Calvin's family was placed under protective custody, as their safety remained a top priority. They provided the collected evidence, including the journal, photographs, and any other material that could aid in the capture and dismantling of the cult. Weeks passed, and the truth gradually emerged. The cult members were apprehended, and the extent of their malevolent activities shocked the community. News outlets covered the story, shedding light on the dark underbelly that had been hidden within the seemingly peaceful campground for far too long. Calvin's family, hailed as heroes, began the slow process of healing and recovery. They were hailed for their bravery in exposing the cult and preventing further harm. Their harrowing experience served as a reminder that evil can lurk in the most unsuspecting places. Years later, the campground was transformed into a symbol of resilience and triumph. It became a place of solace and reflection, where people could come together to commemorate the victims and honor those who had fought against the darkness. Calvin, now a young adult, visited the memorial with his family, grateful for the closure and the opportunity to move forward. The summer camping trip that had begun with excitement and anticipation had morphed into a life-altering experience. It had tested their courage, resilience, and unity as a family. And though they bore the scars of that fateful journey, they emerged stronger, forever changed by the darkness they had confronted and conquered.